Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Another week, another walkthrough, I shall say. Again, for those who just joined us, I'm really sorry, but you should be able to see what's actually more important. That is the art and not our faces. We have had some technical problems. I'm really sorry about that, but let's focus on the art, which is way more interesting. So this is the first act of walkthroughs, a further look. In view of, we had the first part of the series, walkthroughs, which ended a couple of weeks ago. And in light of the great success of the series, we were very happy to announce a follow-up series, which we think is still necessary, given that the many of us are still stuck home, and Zoom is taking over most of our social life, and the art world is fully going digital. So we still crave to create a virtual ecosystem that keeps on feeding our creativity and frees us from tension and stress. And walkthroughs is again our response to the current situation, as we think it's really important still, to stay connected, creative, and get inspired. What is Walkthroughs? Walkthroughs is a weekly meetup happening safely online, with curator joining the conversation and creatives that in turn put the headset on, share their screen, and walk us through the VR work. And you can watch the previous walkthroughs on our Facebook page or YouTube. And if you wish, you could also follow us on social media. The Facebook ID is Synthesis VR, or on Instagram at synthesis.gallery. Now, I would like to introduce this week's artist, Alfredo Salazar-Caro. Alfredo Salazar-Caro is a Mexican native, New York City-based artist and creator. His works are an amalgamation of installation, sculpture, documentary, video, and VR, AR. Alfredo is co-creator and creative director of DiModa, the Digital Museum of Digital Art, and his work has been exhibited internationally at Tribeca Film Festival, Dreamlands at the Whitney Museum in New York City, the Rock Biennale in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and at the HEC, the museum in Basel, Switzerland, among other ones. I'm George Vitale. I'm an exhibition maker, artistic director based in Berlin. My practice evolves around the role and influence of technology on society through the lens of art and the eyes of the artist. In 2017, I founded Synthesis, which is a VR-based experimental art gallery located in Berlin. Next to me, there is Anna. Anna is part of the Synthesis team. She joined Synthesis, I believe, a year and a half ago, if I'm not wrong, Anna, correct?
That's right, you're correct.
And she's been playing a very important, crucial role in everything that we do here at Synthesis. Now, let's move on. I would like to briefly give an overview of the structure of the talk. We will start off with a presentation by Alfredo about the work that is today presented. After the presentation, we will have Alfredo walking us through his piece. We are showing today Dreams of the Jaguar's Daughter. And after walkthrough, we'll welcome and answer questions from the audience. Feel free to leave your questions from the panelists in the comment section on Facebook. I will check it regularly. And Alfredo, I think we are all set for the start. Alfredo?
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you so much to you, Synthesis Gallery, for having me here. It's so nice to join you all virtually. And yeah, I'm really happy to share this work with you. I guess first I should start by saying that we'll drop a link to the actual piece for people to be able to watch it in 360 on YouTube. Of course, if you have a VR headset, you can also watch it on YouTube VR. So all you have to do is search for Dreams of the Jaguar's Daughter on YouTube VR, and you can watch it there. So that's, the best way to have that experience. And yeah, so excited to share with you. So let's get on it. Hopefully y'all can see my screen here on OBS. So Dreams of the Jaguar's Daughter is one of my most recent projects. Like Georgia mentioned, it premiered last year at Tribeca Film Festival. So Dreams of the Jaguar's Daughter is a 3-part experimental documentary where Achik, the spirit of a young immigrant, recalls her dreams and memories of her journey northwards, starting from the Guatemalan jungle, moving into central Mexico and ending in the Arizona desert, where the border of the U.S. and Mexico is. So you can see here a small preview of what the 360 looks like. And like I mentioned, once you can actually enter the 360, you'll understand, but I'll give you guys a little bit more of a preview of what's actually happening in there a little bit. So each one of these episodes is intended to be a fully interactive 6DoF experience. The first episode we showed at Tribeca was actually more or less of a pilot episode. So we decided to make it into a 360 piece because Tribeca had asked us specifically to have that for their 360 program. But the intention was always to make it an interactive work. So that is actually currently what we're developing. We're taking the 360 and taking it back into full 6DoF and developing the next 2 chapters on that same kind of basis. So the work was really based on some of the occurrences that I witnessed during this journey, this research journey, going to Central America and then following the migratory patterns from there all the way to the northern border. So this image that I have up right now is an aerial shot that we took where the migrant caravan in 2018 was crossing the Guatemala-Mexico border. So we actually did not know that we were going to encounter them. This is something that just happened to be there at the same time that we were. The original intention was actually to interview folks along the migratory pattern and talk to people who had been traveling, or the people that were already en route to the north, people who had been deported back, people whose family was still there, and they were affected by immigration in one way or the other, and just interview people along the route. And we were not really counting on encountering this hugely historical moment that of course has evolved dramatically ever since. So this is part of this is really the central theme of the story, which is what is causing these mass migrations that started really in about 2017, but they have roots that go all the way back to the 1980s and actually even before that. So here's a little bit of behind the scenes of how we were capturing footage and people. So on the right side, you can see I'm taking a 3D scan of Maria, who is one of the protagonists, or maybe she's not exactly a protagonist, but her story was a big part of what we captured for this particular episode. And on the left-hand side is the young girl that became the inspiration for the main character, Achik. So this also, this work actually comes as an evolution of previous works. This image is from Border Crossing Beta, which is a precursor of Dreams of the Jaguar's Daughter, which essentially was following a similar premise where I was creating simulations of events at the border. So the first Border Crossing Beta was like an open video game where you would find yourself in the desert and you would have to just kind of like roam indefinitely. And as you did that, you would find little bits and pieces of information of people's lives. And what you're looking at now is an image from Border Crossing Beta 3.0, which was shown in Mexico City in 2017. And this was based on an experience of a friend of mine who was left in the middle of the desert in like a half-built shelter as he was being transported by coyotes from Mexico to, I guess, his final destination. So there is a sculptural and kind of installation element to this work. Of course, that has now become more complicated because of COVID, but it is part of what the series kind of requires. This a little bit of the timeline, which of course this timeline no longer makes sense because of COVID-19. So I'm just going to move on from this. And yeah, so we just got a little bit more shot. So here's another shot of the installation piece, which of course, ideally we'll have something that can keep up with this kind of installation. And here's actually a bit of like a proposal for what the installation could look like in, you know, this kind of like massive warehouse full of like a fully immersive installation and then a bunch of VR headsets, which would be really cool. If anybody out there is just like aching to give me the money to do it, please let me know. And that is it for that presentation. So I'm going to close out of this and then we can just move on to the actual VR. Do you guys have any questions? Hello?
Yeah, Alfredo, let's start. Let's start a walkthrough, and we'll definitely engage with you.
Cool.
With some questions, yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Awesome. So here's behind the scenes. So hopefully this looks pretty nice, thanks to the OBS that took so long to actually do. Yeah, so here we can see the actual world that we created for Drinks of the Jaguar's Daughters. So a lot of this stuff was done with like 3D scans, 360 captures, aerial photogrammetry. So I can just kind of give you guys a little bit of a sense of what's going on. And you know what? I can try something quite bold right now. Let me see if I can go.
Alfredo, sorry for interrupting you. Why don't you play the video? Because the video is the 360 video and the 8-minute video. Because they will be seen perfectly on OBS. So if you could just play that, and then we can.
So actually, I was not able to get the 360 video to play on OBS.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why, but it just wasn't happening. I can try something really fast. Let's see. So maybe, I wonder if I can do a window capture. Oh, I can do Chrome. Okay, let me try something. I might be able to pull it off.
Yeah, because John,
in like a very weird. Let's see. This is not the ideal way, but it might work. Let's see. Okay, this might work. Okay, so let's watch the video.
Let's see. We cannot see anything yet on Facebook. I still see the window with like the developer.
Okay.
Oh,
well,
yeah, I see the like a window with the images. Now here it is. Please. Okay, we are good to go.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so it might be a little bit hard to read this, so maybe I'll read it out.
No, it's actually good. No? It's not that bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is being streamed straight from YouTube, so the quality is not going to be nearly as good as it would be from my computer. Not sure why I couldn't stream from OBS.
Alfredo, try to increase the quality, like to the right where the little wheel is, 3D. Like
okay.
If you move to, no, just move with the mouse to the right side where the subtitles are. You can actually choose a better. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes all the way to 4K, but I'm just afraid it might be too. It might take too long. But you know what? I'm going to try a little bit of increase here. Okay, this looks pretty good. Let's do it. And we'll see if there's any sound that goes along with it. Hopefully there is. Can you guys hear anything?
You stopped the video, so you should play it.
Oh, I guess there's a delay because I'm already playing. yeah, there's no sound coming out of it. I can't hear anything.
One
But
second. One second.
mhm.
There is the sound. There is. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, great. Okay, I think we went through it. So sounds like it sounded
Wow.
good on Facebook, which is awesome. I couldn't really tell. It was quiet for me the whole time. But I was just trying to look at good parts of it. Cool. So let's just get that off of OBS now. Cool. Okay.
Alfredo, can you okay. Okay. So I was just reading the comments on Facebook. So I will I would like to start by asking you, since there were some comments on Facebook on the fact that you brought up the problems, the struggle that immigrants are facing. I wanted to ask, your work is like so poetic, and it really touches the viewer souls. Can you comment on how you wanted to recreate the places of those, of those living there, but also their dreams? And did you feel obliged in a way to honor them?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like the entire core of the work is about honoring them and honoring their effort and honoring their sacrifice. For me, it was really important to show and like recreate the environments that I experienced with these folks in Guatemala, and really show, actually, for me, it's Central America is one of the most beautiful places that I've ever been in. So I really wanted to make sure that that beauty was present all along, and just kind of like not just the physical beauty of the space, the geographical beauty of the space, but also kind of like the spiritual beauty. So, for example, like the faces of these women in the mountains is sort of like a way to talk about this ancestral connection that a lot of people have in South and Central America, like this connection to their indigenous roots, to their ancestors and the spirit of their ancestors, and having to leave a land that is, that they can see reflected, that they can reflect themselves on this land. They see themselves reflected on the land, and having to leave it. And what does that mean? It's like you're leaving your mother, you're leaving your, So there's something about that where I really wanted to make sure that that beauty was somehow captured. I mean, it's never going to be as amazing as actually being there, but I think I did as best as I could.
Alfredo, why don't we, so we can feed the audience with like some visuals, why don't you play the video again, but muted this time, so that we can engage with you in a conversation before we move to the
Okay.
Yeah. Anna, I know you have a question.
Yeah,
right? Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to drop my question over here as well. Like in the beginning, we see Jaguar's daughter popping up in front of us, but could you explain maybe a little bit more why you chose her as a protagonist and Jaguar itself?
Yeah, definitely. So her name actually is Achik.
Yeah.
And Achik means dream in Maya Quiche. And Maya Quiche is one of the many Maya dialogues that exist in, I guess, Central American region. Actually, in this piece, she actually speaks a few phrases of Maya Cachiquel, which is another kind of thing. Another language. So so Achik means dream, and she's the main protagonist. I mean, for me, the most powerful things that I observed being out there and being in the caravan was actually the crazy amount of children that were there. In reality, like, these caravans are not composed of a bunch of like criminal gang members that want to come to America to, destroy it from the ground up, they're really families. And for me, the people that were really carrying the weight on their shoulders were women and children. Women, because they are the leaders of their families, and they're the ones that are feeding people and nourishing people and, you know, doing all of this while pushing their family forward. And children, because they have no idea why they have to go through this, and yet they have to show this level of strength that I haven't seen in, you know, adults anywhere else in the world, or at least, you know, within America or something, you know. Anyway, so I found their power to be really impressive. And so the reason for the title, The Dreams of the Jaguar's Daughter, so the jaguar is a really important symbol in a lot of Mesoamerican cultures. The Maya in particular had this like really strong attachment and reverence for jaguars. And in, for example, Incan mythology, there is this kind of like 3 levels of consciousness that are inside of your body that kind of correlate to chakras. I don't know if you guys are familiar with chakras, but so essentially you would have at the top of your head, you have the ego consciousness, which represents kind of like the lofty ideals, but also the darkness of the sky. At the bottom of your body, where your kind of like your intestines, your guts are, you have a snake, and the snake represents the underworld, the underground, kind of like the lower instincts. Literally, your intestine is a giant snake. And in the center of your core, you have the jaguar, and the jaguar represents this core energy. In you know, in the world of yoga and chakras and meditation, this chakra, this third chakra, which is in your solar plexus, which is the same as the Incas saw the jaguar, is kind of like your power of will, your forward movement, your forward motion, you know, your power of manifestation. So the jaguar is that power. The jaguar is that strength to move forward, to be able to be there and face adversity and continue on. So for me, that's the power that I saw in the people. You know, I saw that jaguar energy, that like relentless desire to live and to just find peace. And you need that power if you're going to do what these people did, because, you know, by the time that we met them in the border, they had already been walking for at least a week, some of them even longer. And they were just there for the beginning of their journey. Their journey had just hardly started. I mean, just if you think about the size of Guatemala, right? So these people are coming from mostly Honduras and El Salvador, and then they're walking the entirety of the country of Guatemala, which is a small country, but it's still, you know, a sizable a piece of land. And then they have to cross all of Mexico, which is probably 10 times larger, right? And then they have to come to America to try to face off against this fascist government that we currently have, right? That is putting people in concentration camps. That is, you know, so the type of energy and power that you need to carry yourself all the way there is, for me, one of the most impressive things that I've ever witnessed. And that energy is the jaguar energy.
I think it's a really beautiful picture that you created. Like now, as you said, like you saw the jaguar, the soul, the chakra, and the people having this, you know, really hard way in front of them, or even like just like the beginning behind them, and to keep the strength. It's like really beautiful. And what also occurred to me was like this topic is super emotional, you know, and as we can see, like there's a destruction going on, and they have to leave their homes for whatever reason. And so for me, it would be very interesting if you know, people that are witnessing this through VR, if you think that this medium has a greater impact than, for example, only showing a film and not having this 360-degree experience. So what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to believe that VR has a greater impact and that, this is something that will create a sense of embodiment in people, and just kind of help them feel like they're there, or like identify with a cheek, for example. The reason why we wanted to create the central character is to have somebody that you could talk to, and she would be able to, have a little more of like a one-on-one with you, as opposed to, just like watching a documentary, or like, just like, just kind of like, because, when you watch a documentary, like a classic documentary, and they just talk to you about like, oh, like the people and like they're suffering and there's like thousands of them and blah, blah, blah. Like, when you hear the term, 10,000 people, 20,000 people, 50,000 people, what does that mean? Like you can't really even fathom what it's like to like try to feel 50,000 people at the same time, right? But when you can just be in front of one person, then you can really connect, right? Then you can really create a bond. So for me, VR kind of gives you the chance of being present. And of course, the 360 version is nice and it gives you some embodiment, but the full VR, the full 6.Ps, that really gives you a chance to actually interact with the cheek and really interact with the environment. And for me, that's even more special, and I think that can really create a sense of experience and belonging to a certain extent.
Alfredo, you mentioned that this work is like sort of like a documentary, and it's your first narrative work.
That's right.
What challenges do you face?
Well, for me, there's a lot of different challenges here. For one, like you said, this is my first time working into narrative, and I kind of avoided that for a long time. I didn't really find it that interesting. I just wanted to create kind of more like open-ended experiences. And so, with Dreams of the Jaguar's Daughter, actually, the fully interactive piece has more of a experiential element, in the sense that the story doesn't just keep advancing while you're there, but rather the story advances when you interact with different objects, when you engage with the cheek in a certain way. So, there is a little bit more of that agency of how to like make the story move forward, or just how to like experience the whole story. So that's one of the challenges, like just thinking about like, how can I combine this experiential work with something that actually tells a story that has a beginning and an end, and especially in 3 chapters, and then the other challenge is, of course, how do I present this information in such a way that is powerful and true to itself, but also that it has a hopeful message at the end of it. And that's been, for me, the greatest challenge, especially now, because of course, COVID has really made it difficult for the people who have crossed and they're already in the border, right? Because a lot of them are getting sick in the camps. A lot of them are actually currently in hunger strikes, trying to get freed, because it's been known that these kinds of detention centers are places where very easily this disease can spread. So, as somebody that is following this story and somebody that is making a documentary on it, I'm thinking, how can I take these elements that are so dark and somehow like still create something that gives you a sense of hope, a glimmer of hope. So that's been a challenge for me. Yeah.
Yeah, was it also challenging, or how was it like to implement like all of these different footage, like the documentation shots, 3D animation and all of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, that's, that was kind of like a technical challenge for us. I work with Prashant Tapan as one of our lead VR developers. Me and him were the dev team essentially, and we had to figure out ways to like integrate footage in such a way that it didn't just look like a screen popped up in the middle of the video, or in the middle of the VR. So we came up with different ideas, and of course, I wanted everything to be very surreal and very dreamlike. So we decided that we were going to take some of this footage and integrate it as these kind of like dream clouds that would appear as the chick would kind of like narrate about what she was interested in, about her story. So we actually have hours and hours of footage, which a lot of it will be integrated into chapters 2 and 3. So there's a lot more of that coming in, and we're also figuring out other ways to integrate kind of like cinematic quality footage into the piece. We've been talking to Scatter a little bit and talking about like volumetric capture and stuff like that. So yeah, there's like different ways of integrating. For me, it was the videos, and then of course like the 3D scans that made the visuals of the piece, and once we get into the Unreal Engine, I can show you guys like where some of these 3D scans are and how they like blend into the environment and stuff.
Yeah. Why don't we move to the developer engine so we can take a look, and yeah, I will let you guys
Sure.
through it for a while, and then I will ask you a couple of questions.
Totally. And actually here, as like the piece is ending, you can see some of those videos as they're fading away. But okay, cool. Let's move on to the engine. Okay, so let me just double check. So here is Unreal Engine. And here is the Dreams of the Jaguar's Daughter world. So let me just make sure that this is actually working in OBS. It looks like it is. Okay. Yeah, so let's take a little tour. So here's a cheek in her T-pose. So a cheek is actually composed of a combination of 3D scans. So her mask is a 3D scan of an actual ancient Mayan artifact. It's actually from the top of an urn, a Mayan urn in which like this kind of like crazy looking Mayan priest is holding 2 jaguar cubs in his hands. So one of the jaguar cubs is where a cheek's mask comes from. And actually in the episodes, she's going to grow older. So by episode 3, she will be a full grown woman, and her mask also changes as she grows. So we have all the masks ready to go. And then her outfit is what's called a huipil. So this is a traditional outfit, and you can actually find huipiles all the way, all through Central America and all the way to northern Mexico. But this is a traditional Guatemalan huipil, or Maya Cachiquel huipil, and this is all real, and it's actually also scanned from real huipiles from our writer Genesis. So Genesis actually was kind enough to let us borrow some of her collection for Achik's clothes. And let's see. So the house is actually also partially a 3D scan and partially built. So this top part is a 3D scan. These giant spheres are actually, you don't really see them in the game, but these are like colliders. So that whenever the house gets destroyed, these are the objects that the house collides against, actually. But for example, this top part is actually a 3D scan from a house that was surviving in what I guess in Guatemala they call Ground Zero. So back in 2017, they had a volcano, the volcano of fire, which is that volcano in the center of the screen now, that actually erupted, and it destroyed a lot of homes, and it killed about 3,000 people. So during our journey, we actually ended up in Ground Zero, and we saw a lot of the destruction that was left. And this was one of the homes that was still standing. So it kind of became integrated into the work. Here's some of the offerings that a chick brings. So these are called chuchitos, and chuchitos are like the equivalent of Mexican tamales. So it's basically like a little bit of dough with a little bit of meat or cheese inside of it. And that's been like steamed for a while. This is one of my favorite 3D scans actually in here. This is a pyramid in Ixinche, which is a sacred site in Guatemala. So we actually took a full 3D scan of it. Here, I'm going to show you the guts of the game. So just kind of like floating in space there. But this is a 3D scan of a real pyramid that actually had a real tree growing on top of it. And yeah, like I said, this is in Ixinche. And we took this scan with a drone. So we actually had to like incognito fly around it. We did get caught and we didn't get kicked out, but we got the scan. So that was good. They were not happy about us flying a drone in their sites, but you know, it's for art. So, and of course I asked the ancestors for permission, you know. Here's a few other like little detail 3D scans, you know, and of course the mountains, those faces are all 3D scanned. And then this river is meant to be kind of like, the Rio Suchiate, which is the river that divides Mexico from Guatemala.
Alfredo, I'm curious to ask, since you know, the topic of immigration is still so relevant in the U.S., but also relevant in Germany, and it's so important to you as well, as you know, thinking of your previous work at Border Crossing Beta. Can you talk? How is the future like for you know, Dreams of the Jaguar's Daughter? Can you talk a little bit about chapter 2 and 3?
Sure. So chapter 2 and 3 are currently being developed. So I just received a grant from A Blade of Grass to continue development. So I'm very excited about that, and you know, talking to some executive producers and working along with some folks to like continue making this happen. So chapters 2 and 3 are going to take place in different environments, of course. So each chapter follows one leg of the journey, if you will. So chapter 1 is called Exodus / Home. So, you know, this is the beginning. This is where a chick lives. This is where, you know, she grew up. And then she is forced to leave, right? So in this particular case, you know, we talk a little bit about people that want to hurt a chick and a chick's family, which we show the volcano, we show like her crops being burnt down. All of these are things that actually happen to people, and actually happen to the people that we talk to specifically. And in chapter 2, we're gonna go to central Mexico, specifically Oaxaca, which is a town where a lot of immigrants stop. And the reason they do that is because Oaxaca is kind of like a straight shot from Guatemala. You just take the highway that goes along the, I guess, the Pacific coast of Mexico. So you just take the highway, and the first big city that you enter is Oaxaca. And so Oaxaca is actually outfitted with a lot of shelters, because they know, you know, a lot of people cross through there. So, people can go to the shelters. And in Oaxaca, there's also this amazing tree called el árbol del Tule, or tree of Tule. And this tree is a 2,000-year-old willow that is also the widest tree in the world, right? So it's this incredibly thick trunk. For me, actually, growing up, I would go visit that tree a lot because my mother's family is from Oaxaca. So we would go there and you know, see the tree. And for me, that tree like really represents this kind of like feeling of safety and shelter. So chapter 2 is going to focus on shelter, and kind of, you know, about this feeling of, you know, being safe, but only for a small period of time, or like a precarious safety, you know. Because one thing that is really fascinating about these immigrant shelters in Oaxaca, and actually across Mexico and across Guatemala, where there's also immigrant shelters, is that oftentimes people don't really stay there for very long. Or it's not that they can't, but that they will not allow them. So mostly people will stay in in these shelters for at the most 3 days, right? And then after 3 days, they have to leave, and they don't really have a choice. They kind of get kicked out, right? So they kind of have to just deal with that. So it's like, okay, here you go, have some food, have some water, sleep on a bed, take a shower, but then you have to get out. And to me, it's kind of this very strange kind of dichotomy of cruelty and charity, you know. So chapter 2 is going to focus on that, and then chapter 3 is going to be focusing on the Arizona desert, which is, of course, one of the most precarious, dangerous places to cross in America. So, of course, because the desert is so vast and so dangerous, it's actually one of the places where there is no border wall, in which I should mention that the border wall has actually started getting built since 1994 by the Clintons. And then it became stronger under George W. Bush, and then it became stronger under, actually, Obama continued George Bush's border wall policy and continued building it. And now this occupant of the White House is also continuing it and claiming credit, but this has existed for a long time. But part of the design of this wall from the beginning in the 90s was that there were areas that were just going to leave open for multiple reasons. One, it doesn't interrupt the natural migration of animals, and it does not disrupt the natural environment, which a lot of places, for example, the Saguaro Desert, you know, these are protected areas. They're federally protected areas, and they're supposed to be left intact. And two, of course, it's so precarious and so dangerous to go through it that, you know, they actually have signs at the border where there's no wall that says, like, hey, this is America now. If you want to cross through here, you can, but you probably will die. So just so you know, you face death. Don't do it. It's a stupid idea. But of course, people do it anyway, and people survive. But it is very intense and very dangerous. So the last chapter is going to be dealing with that because, you know, of course, for me, one of the most, some of the most dark and touching conversations that I had during this time was actually with folks that were about to cross the desert, and with folks that had family that tried to cross it, and then, you know, they found out years later that somebody had found their remains somewhere in the desert. And so, you know, this is kind of like a really brutal chapter, but it's kind of like the final tail end, you know. So the last chapter is going to deal largely with the desert, but it's also going to deal with the immigration camps. It's also going to be dealing with the border. And like I said, you know, my goal is to show this kind of like this trek as a way to show people like what it is that folks have to put themselves through just so they can come to America and make a shitty wage and work a shitty job and still live in the shadows and still live in fear. It's insane, but in a crazy way, it's actually better than being back in their country where they're being murdered for literally no reason. So, yeah, so chapter 3 is going to be focused on that. So that's pretty much how the progression goes.
Wow, huge topics.
Yes.
Do you know when you can, you know, share chapter 2 with us?
So chapters 2 and 3 are, like I said, they're in development now. The goal is the original goal was to release them in 2021. Of course, because of COVID, production has slowed in many different aspects. But, you know, 2021 or early 2022, you'll definitely be seeing something. I feel pretty good about having chapter 2 come out in 2021. But there's a part of me that just wants to release the full trilogy. So I'll see if that makes sense.
Of course.
Alfredo, I would like to ask you something else now related more to VR.
Sure.
So, you know, the VR is now entering the commercializing phase of a new medium where, you know, anyone with a lot of money or is famous enough to get funding can simply hire people with skills and implement their vision. On the other hand, the wide availability of VR technology is also enabling a much broader range of voices from many different cultures and perspectives to actually have a voice. What is your take on that?
Well, can you repeat that last part of it? I wasn't quite, I couldn't really understand what you were saying.
Yeah, I said that, on one end, there is VR is entering the commercializing phase where anyone with a lot of money, is famous enough to get funding, can simply hire people with skills and, make it happen. On the other end,
right.
the wider availability of VR technology is also enabling a much broader range of voices from many different cultures and perspectives to actually have a voice. What's your take on that?
I think that's awesome. I really am hoping that, this will, I really hope that more people will be able to create in this medium. I know for a fact that, for example, Oculus has announced their space, right? Oculus Horizon, which I think is going to allow people to be creative within it. I think that could be a really interesting way for people that don't have access or the skill set to, for example, use Unreal Engine or Unity to just start being creative within this world. Yes, accessibility is a very strange thing with VR. From the perspective of people being able to experience stuff, which as we have seen in the last year, people cannot get enough Oculus Quest. They're completely sold out. They went back online for 24 hours, maybe 2 weeks ago, and then they were all gone again, So I think that's really fascinating, that people are really thirsty for these kinds of experiences. But then, of course, there's the other side of it, which is the production. So who is able to produce VR? Who is able to, like you were saying, if you're rich enough or famous enough, you can just have anybody make it. But it's pretty much the same as any other medium, right? Film has been a place where people who are extremely wealthy, make giant blockbusters, and they can get giant budgets. And they can make things that they could never do on their own. So VR is really the same, it's another it's another powerful medium, and of course the people with access are going to be the ones doing the craziest things right away. But hopefully this can be brought on to other voices, like you were saying. I always have these fantasies of collaborating with Google or something and getting a bunch of laptops and bringing them to some kids, that don't have the access to this stuff, and just teaching them and just see what they come up with, just see what are the stories that are not being told because the perspectives that can tell these stories just don't have the access. So.
Alfredo, I know you are a gamer and you love computer games. Can you tell us how that has helped you making and envisioning your VR works?
I guess I am a gamer. I don't know. I don't know if I would describe myself that way immediately, but I actually have been playing games in the past year, but there was a while where I didn't play for a long time. But I love video games. I grew up with them. I had a Nintendo 64 back in 1998, and I remember it blew my mind, and I just couldn't get off of it. And I remember my mom had to limit the amount of time that I would spend on it, because if it was up to me, I would just do it every day, every hour. So I always definitely dreamed of making my own video games when I was a kid. And then that idea just seemed far-fetched early on, and it's definitely been a big influence. I think a lot about I use a lot of video game language in my work. We talk about Easter eggs and special downloadables and things like that. Video games are definitely a huge influence. I'm not super interested in making games. I'm definitely more interested in making experiences. So,
yeah. Why? There is a question. From from the audience. Wendy is asking, she actually read my mind. Can you tell us a little bit about Dimoda and what's next for Dimoda?
Sure.
For those who don't know, Dimoda is the Digital Museum of Digital Art. Is a pioneering virtual museum that can be accessed via an Oculus headset, and is dedicated
Correct.
to commissioning, preserving, and exhibiting cutting-edge VR artworks.
Correct. So yeah, that's Dimoda, and Dimoda is currently wrapping up development of Dimoda 4.0. So we wanted to release Dimoda 4.0 back in April, but of course, because of COVID, that was not able to happen. So what we're actually doing right now is that normally we do a physical exhibition, we tour, and then we release we release our work virtually, so people can download it. And right now, we have not done that with Dimoda 3.0. So the next step immediately is actually to release Dimoda 3.0 virtually. So myself and William, my business partner with Dimoda, we've been working on getting everything tight for Dimoda 3.0, and we're actually going to release it very soon. So keep an eye out, and you'll be able to download and play Dimoda 3.0, and then Dimoda 4.0 will be announced also relatively soon. So that's coming up.
Do you believe that in the coming futures, in the future, there will be unification, a more homogeneous unification between virtual and physical worlds?
Yeah, I mean, it's already joined, right? Like there is no physical without the virtual, or I'm sorry, the other way around. There is no virtual without the physical, right? Like I can't enter VR without a headset or a computer. I can't access the internet without the physical world intervening, right? The internet is a physical thing. There are giant cables across the ocean that actually allow us to have these communications. There's literally hundreds of satellites around Earth that allow us to have these kinds of communications, right? So I think there's never really been a separation, but I do think, of course, we will have things be more integrated into our daily lives. I think AR is going to be hugely useful for any kind of application. I think that VR is going to be a new way for us to entertain ourselves and also to communicate with others and to spend time with people who we can't see physically on a regular basis. As much as I love Zoom, I love hanging out in VR a lot more. I mean, I don't know if y'all have tried hanging out in VR chat or something like that, but it's awesome. And it feels great to like meet up your friends there and hang out and say like, hey, let's go check out this weird space and just move around and, look like a frog or something. So, yeah, I think it will inevitably go in that direction. Do I think that's the best thing for humanity? No, actually. I think that the best thing for humanity is to reconnect with nature and with actual reality, right? So like the cities that we live in, the world that we've built around ourselves, that's false. That's another virtual reality. The true reality is the earth, the plants, the animals. That's reality. And we have been disconnecting ourselves from it for, thousands of years now. Well, I would argue that we've been disconnecting ourselves truly from it for the last 500 years because of colonialism, but that's another conversation for another time. And I think that actually in this time, it is crucial for us to go back to those connections. I mean, sure, we can use technology to aid that. We can use technology to enhance that experience, but we have to realize that the most important thing to focus on is actually a return to nature. Otherwise, we're going to all be doomed. We already are well on our way, so we need to do something very quickly.
Alfredo, there's Wendy is asking if, this is completely, what can I say? Wendy's asking if we can see something on the screen showing Dimoda. Do you have anything ready, like right away?
OBS has been such a mess. I don't even want to try. So okay. I'm sorry, Wendy. Not today. This is Dreams of the Jaguar's Daughter talk.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we have reached the end. I would like to thank everyone who's can hear us.
You know what? Let me see if I can pull one thing.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
might be
sure.
able to do one thing. 1 second. This is just for you, Wendy. Okay. Let's see. So OBS, add another thing. Let's see, media source, image. Let's try that. Okay. That's weird. Okay, let me try something else. Oh, great image. Okay. Browse. Okay. Y'all ready for this?
Let's do it.
There it is. So that is the latest render of Demota 4.0's new architecture environment. So this is where all the pieces are going to be shown, and it takes place in Brooklyn, actually. There's a fully functioning subway system, and this is composed by, this architecture was designed by myself and Ayman Tawfiq, who is an Iraqi architect living in New York City. Both of us are immigrants. Ayman is an Iraqi refugee, actually. He fled Iraq from the American invasion in 2009, actually, after 6 years of being in, fleeing in different camps. So this piece we call the Nomad, this architecture, and it's actually composed of 3D scans of immigrants from the Middle East, Central America, and Africa. We created this structure and this kind of like mesh wrap around it as a way to talk about the way that people wrap their heads when they cross the deserts. Thinking about like nomadic culture, nomadic tribes of the Middle East, but also in the way that immigrants from South America are crossing the desert and actually doing something very similar. So so this is what Demota 4.0 is going to look like. Demota 4.0 is curated by Christiana Paul, the new media curator for the Whitney Museum. I'm excited to share with you guys soon. But this is the sneak peek.
Thank you, Alfredo. That looks actually
very
looks
cool.
Awesome. Right. So we have reached the end. We want to thank you everyone for joining us. I'm really sorry about the technical problems, and we hope to see you next week with Claudia Hart and Christian Paul. And thank you very much, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you for having me.